Hey guys, I don't know how that's working out. It's my first live stream here on YouTube on this channel. Hey, I've got some tips for folks, man. We want to talk a little bit about gigging and how to negotiate your best fee. And these are some high level tips and give you a little bit about my background. I always say semi-professional, but if you're getting paid to play music, and I do it quite regularly, you're technically a professional. But I have other gigs. I own a web marketing company. I'm on a podcast, and I do other things for money. But what I wanted to start doing is kind of giving back because a lot of people get in, they learn how to play an instrument, they get pretty proficient at it, and they want to start gigging and actually making money. And I haven't really found anything out there that gives tips for those new guys starting out or the existing guys who really just don't know how to do things. My background before owning businesses, I was a sales trainer, I was a sales officer. So a lot of what we do as musicians when we go out and we book gigs is it's sales, man. It's really what it is. And what I want to speak to today are some high level ideas for you as you go out to negotiate and find those gigs. And once you find those gigs, how do you talk to a venue or owner or promoter or somebody in power that makes the decisions for booking entertainment? So let's get into that. I don't want this to go on and drawn on forever. So the first thing you need to do is you need to absolutely do your research. You need to know what the going rates are for musicians in your area. And that can be a broad range, but if you have an idea, and unfortunately, we as musicians, we keep stuff like this close to our vest because we're very competitive. We feel threatened by other musicians a lot of times. And I say we, not everybody's like that. I don't really care what you make as a musician. If you can get what you can get, man, I'm so excited for you and I want you to be able to do that. Other musicians aren't like that, unfortunately. They get jealous. There's a lot of jealousy and gigging and with musicians, and it really shouldn't be that way. We should be a little bit more cooperative. But obviously, if you're a musician, you probably have friends who are musicians that actually gig, and you can touch base with them and ask them, look, man, what's the going rate for solo acoustic acts, or what's the going rate for weddings? Or what's the going rate to play full band in bars and get an idea. That's your starting point. That's where you start before you start discussing pay with a venue. You have to know because number one, you need to be realistic. You know, if your area is only paying $150 per musician or paying um, you know, if they're paying $500 or if bands are getting $500 for a 3 hour gig or whatever, you need to know that going in. So that is incredibly important. Second thing you need to do is your worth. Obviously, if you're a new musician starting out, you don't have a following, you don't bring as much to the table as that guy that's been out there gigging for 5 years and has hundreds of people in the area that follow him, or somebody that has marketing prowess behind them, or somebody that's just amazingly good. You know, there are so many factors that go in there, but you need to know what you are bringing to the table. You know, me, one of my our biggest selling points from our cover band that I'm in, I also play solo, and the cover band was the fact that I own a marketing company. And venues don't always market you, as I've said in a previous video. So what I brought to the table is the fact I knew how to market. I was going to promote every gig we did like it was, you know, the biggest band in the country coming into town. And that's typically how I approach that. And we have some gimmicks we use to help promote, and they seem to work okay for us. We bring a crowd even in areas where we've never played. So that definitely helps. So know what you bring to the table, know your worth, and don't undersell yourself because music's fun, man. So a lot of times we're close to our art and so we don't place a value on it. So be sure to know what you are that and what you're worth, so you can negotiate from a position of strength. You don't want to go in there and give the farm away just to be able to play in front of people. Definitely don't want to do that. So next, you need to be flexible. Negotiations aren't like Walmart where you walk in and pay a fixed price. What I normally do when I'm negotiating gigs, I have a normal rate in mind, and obviously that rate is not what I'd love to necessarily get for that gig or for the area, but it's based on the first two things. If we don't have a following in an area, and and the area that we're playing in is paying a certain amount of money, I'm not going to go in and ask our preferred rate. What I do is I say our normal rate for your area for this time of a gig, for a 3-hour gig is such and such. But I also have in mind a minimum amount that I'm willing to take, and you need a minimum amount. You don't need to be playing for whatever they necessarily offer you. Also, you can negotiate perks and meals. Those have great value. I mean, when we're playing, I drink a lot of beer. I mean, you sweat and you're partying with the crowd and you're having a good time. So I drink. So normally what I do is say our normal rate is this with drinks, adult beverages. And then they'll come back and say, well, that's a little above our budget, or okay, or we can't afford to pay that. Then typically I follow that up with, well, what can you pay? Or what is your budget? And if that budget is below our minimum, we say, I'm sorry, our absolute minimum for coming to your area and play is such and such. The key is when you tell them your normal rate, and this is one of the most difficult things to do in sales, but when you give a price for something, you shut up. After you say, this is normally what we charge. How does that sound? Then you don't say a word. Our natural tendency is to avoid awkward silences, but you've got to be strong enough to get through that and not do that. And it's a process. It's not Walmart, like I said. You don't go in and say, all right, we're charging $1,000 a night. And if they offer you $800, you need to consider that. So anyway, let's move on. So keep expectations clear. Clearly communicate and discuss what you expect with them. Now this is so important because you can say, yeah, we'll do a gig for $800, or as a solo artist, I'll do it for $300 or $400 or $150, whatever that number is. And I'm playing from 6 to 9. Well, is that from 6 to 9 straight through without a break? Is that from 6 to 7:30 with a 20-minute break, so on and so forth? So you have to be clear about your expectations. So what I typically do is you start broad, and then you get more finite as you get close to confirmation. Is I'll tell them, well, for a 3-hour gig, we normally charge this. They say, okay, that's awesome. We'll do that. We want to book you guys. Cool. All right, just so we're on the same page, and so we understand, that is 3 40 to 45-minute sets with breaks in between, playing from 6 till 9 or 8:45, because technically there's a break on the back end of that last break. You give us 2 hours ahead of show time to set up and do sound check, and then we have sufficient time afterwards. Electricity, all of those things need to be mentioned. Where will we be playing? Am I playing on a cardboard box in the corner, or am I on a huge stage like the Troubadour or something like that? So all of those details, any and all details. $50 bar tab is part of the compensation package. When am I getting paid? Or what I prefer to do is say, all right, we expect payment at this point prior to showtime. If we don't have it by that point, we don't play. So that way you still have some negotiating. Not everybody does that. A lot of venues, smaller venues, pay you after you're done, and they're honorable. And I've yet to have anybody try to not. Or recently, when I was much younger playing, I did have somebody tell us they weren't going to pay us. and we packed out the show. We know they made money that night. But going back to the know your worth, you also have to know what you're offering, and let that venue owner know during negotiations what you're going to do for them, because that's what it's all business, man. They're booking you to draw people into their venue because they want to make money. So you can't lose sight of that when you're booking gigs. Your job is to help them make money. And then you scratch each other's back. You get to play music, you get paid for it, you may get a free meal and some drinks out of it. They get to make money on the people you bring in and entertain and keep there. So that's something to think about as well. So, finally, you need to get everything in writing. I realize I haven't been transitioning these slides, so I apologize. Get everything in writing. Once you've negotiated and agreed on pay, you got your gig details, send an email and say, look, once you reply back and say you confirm to agree to this, I will put it on the calendar and we'll be good to go. Along with any conditions of cancellation or things like that. Usually when you're first starting out, you don't worry about that. If you get canceled, you get canceled. But nowadays I put a cancellation provision in my email, and I say, if you cancel within 7 days of this gig, you owe me this. If you cancel within 48 hours, you owe me this. If it's within 24, you owe me this. Because your time is valuable, and that's something you have to do, is place that premium and know your worth and what's on there. So I want to leave you with this. You are selling, so it's important for you to learn how to sell. And I'll offer some how to sell musical services videos in the near future. But negotiations are a normal part of being a musician. And with a little practice, you'll get better at it. I promise. It's filling out a process, learning. There are certain words and phrases and things, and you'll do that where you present the music that you find that work, and you'll rely on those, and you'll use those time and time again. So that practice goes a long ways. Don't be afraid to place value on what you do, man, because you do. Ask for what you're worth, but be willing to negotiate on that. Normal rate, minimum rate, preferred rate. You can even say our preferred rate is this, or normal rate for your area is this. But don't mention the minimum rate until they come back to you. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys. If it has, go ahead and like and subscribe. And I'm trying to do at least one of these videos a week. I'm still trying to get on a routine. I'm a very busy guy, unfortunately. But thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.